So part of that, like just focusing on the outcome and not the specific task. Because if you focus on the task and then you feel like, okay, they didn't do it that way that I would have done it, but do they reach the outcome, right? Like that is key, I think, when it comes to like understanding, do I have the right resource in place or not?
Hey, everybody. Today, I am so excited to be joined by Karen Hite. If you don't know Karen, she is the CEO of Committed Mastermind and the co-founder of Hite International. Over the past 6 years, she and her husband have transformed Hite International into a thriving digital marketing agency, and she equips digital marketing agencies like us with essential tools for growth through Committed Mastermind. Really super excited to talk to someone of Karen's caliber today. Karen, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here and to share a little bit about our journey with everybody that's listening.
Yes, very excited because you've had a very cool journey. You do cool things. And today we're going to hit on hiring, but we're going to hit on a lot of subtopics too, just because you do all the things and you work with a lot of agencies. So we just want to soak all of that knowledge up.
Perfect.
First questions though, what made you decide to do this whole crazy thing of entrepreneurship and start your own marketing agency?
Yeah, it actually came out of necessity for us. When we started our agency, we were exiting another one and I was 7 months pregnant. And it was one of those things where like, okay, we have to make money. We were exiting a company that we just like didn't belong anymore at. And so we were starting from scratch, like literally starting an agency, like creating the processes from scratch, getting clients, like our first clients and all of that entails, building a business from the beginning, while being pregnant with our first child, not having insurance. So, just adding all the wonderful things, to our life to make it very interesting for sure. But our first goal really was just to make sure that we were able to deliver our baby and pay for that because we didn't have insurance. So like that was kind of like our goals, just like, okay, let's make enough money for that. And since then, it has been an amazing journey and I'm excited to share more about that. We started as a white label agency back in the day. So we really got to serve so many agencies through that journey. And we were able to apply a lot of the things that we learned from, exiting a previous agency in the past.
Talk about that a little bit. Talk about white labeling just for a second, because I'm not sure everybody knows what white labeling is, but Tell us what white labeling is so they know what it is, but also tell them why you decided to do that in the beginning.
So we started white labeling mainly because we knew how to help agencies, like being part of a previous entity and knowing how to work the sales side and also the service side. My husband and I, we both worked at this agency before. So we got so much good experience in growing with this previous agency to like 350 team members, so we got quite a bit of that. And our journey, back in the day was actually servicing other agencies. And so we just thought, hey, if we can create some really good relationships off of that, and just for us, like has always been a mentality of like, we can always win, like everybody can win, but it's a lot easier if we all win together. And our real superpowers are operations and fulfillment and the product side. That's where we really, really shine. And so it was just like kind of like a natural thing that happened for us. And we just started reaching out to agencies instead of having to like reinvent, the wheel and try to find and start something like, off the gate. Like, how can we support people that are already doing it? And so that was, I think, a very smart beginning for us, because a lot of people have superpowers, when it comes to like selling and, fulfilling and brand and all that stuff, which we then developed. But in the beginning, it was just really cool to take some of our own experience in building, this operational frameworks and structures for other businesses to fulfill.
I love that. And are those all of your clients now? Are all of your clients other agencies still?
So funny enough, we went from that. Then we started a franchise model within the digital marketing agency, which was another one of those wild adventures. And we recently started a direct branch inside of our agency. So we're now servicing direct clients. Okay. It's now our goal. So like, I feel like we have been in all the different sorts of like journeys. And so that's why me specifically, my job is to like support other agencies in their own journeys on whatever they want to do. And I think that has allowed me to see that, hey, there's not only one way of doing this digital marketing agency thing. There's many, many ways that you can do it. And you can win in many different ways. And success means different things for different people. And so that I think that experience just has allowed us to get a little bit more of understanding and in order to support in the right way. Got it.
So you've done all of these crazy, amazing things. The first team that you worked with was 350 people. So you have a unique experience and skill set when it comes to people. So talking today, we're going to be talking about making that first hire for some of the agencies that are newer, or maybe making your next hire if you're not new. But what do you feel, knowing what you know and being through everything that you've been through, what do you feel the key indicators are that help you realize it's time to make that first hire or that next hire? Like, what is it? Is it a gut feeling? Is it certain data points that you look at?
You know, for us, it has been a combination of things. When we first started hiring, I think like some of the key hires that you have to have in the business have to sort of complement who you are as a leader. One of the things that a lot of people talk about is like, how can you find that operational person, your COO or your operations director of operations? And I think like that's one of the key roles that people try to find. And from the beginning, they're trying to see somebody that can do X, Y, Z, and they're asking other agencies of like, hey, how does it work for you and your operations person? And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that we can make, you know, specifically in hiring, because we're trying to hire for a role instead of the need that you have in your business.
Yes.
And for us, that's key in operations specifically. You as a leader, you know, we're all different, right? But let's talk about, you know, like the CEO of the agency. Some CEOs are really good at the financial side and the operations. Others are really good at the sales side, but not so much the operations side. Mm-hmm. And so your CEO really should be a mirror of who you are as a CEO, right? So your operations person should, like ideally, every hire, honestly, should be able to fulfill that weakness that you have so you can leverage the strengths that you have and focus on those as the leader. And so I think like a lot of the times when we're thinking first and foremost, you know, like outside of like thinking about the strategies and how to get the right people and who you should be looking at, or should we hiring, you know, inside of the US or abroad, the first thing is understanding what is the need for that role. And based on that, create the job description. One person, I feel like a lot of the roles that we have within the agencies, like, you know, your customer success manager, like your engineers, for example, they have very specific skill sets that they need to have to fulfill that role. The need is that, yet when we're thinking about operations, it's a little bit different, right? That's kind of like the ambiguous sort of like role that we have in there. I don't know if that responded to that first question.
No, it totally did. So how do you determine, okay, so you're determining the role in the hire based on the leader or the CEO. Yeah. How do you determine which role to fill first? Let me rephrase that. Do you hire for skill, experience, or fit with that CEO and the culture, or is it like a mix of all of those?
I think that's where you have to look at every business and the leader in that business. For example, I'll give you like our own agency. When we first started, I had the operational background, so I knew exactly how I wanted to build the CRM, for example, and the business. And we went straight into like implementing that. JC, my husband, was like really savvy on just like the client communication, client experience, how to mold, you know, those conversations from hey, like I can offer you this, to like the fulfillment of that. Mm-hmm. He was not super savvy in the product side, funny enough, right? And so like his first hire was, I need an engineer that is really able to like take all these promises that I'm making and all the things that I know are possible, right? Like it has to make sense, but in an actual fulfillment. And so that was our first hire. I know a lot of people come from a more freelancing background, so they have done the product side more than the sales side, for example, right. Or, you know, just like the client management side. And so like normally for them, the first hire would be a client success manager type of person, somebody that can take off the workload of like fulfilling, just like the communication side, because they're more of the product person. They know that they can do it a lot quicker. And so that's where I think like just understanding where your strengths and weaknesses are. And there's ways to get really smart about hiring. I think, just hiring, just to hire somebody and like, okay, I need to build a team in order for this because I am going to grow this and it's amazing. Well, there's steps that you have to look into that, right? Like in order to like grow. For example, I know a lot of people hired an assistant or an executive assistant like right off the gate sometime. That's great if you know exactly what you're going to give them to do. But I feel like a lot of agency owners, they're still trying to figure out what their day-to-day is looking like. And they're having these meetings with their account executive or the executive assistant. And they're like, I don't even know what to give this person, right? Because they don't have a need for that yet. What I would say is, anytime that, I talk to like somebody that is feeling overwhelmed, because that's when you need to hire, right? Like ideally before you feel overwhelmed, but when they're feeling overwhelmed, that's when they're feeling the pain and they're needing to find somebody to fulfill that role. I always tell them like, list all of the activities that you're fulfilling in a day-to-day. Like look at your calendar and start putting them there. And then based on that, understand, okay, like I have accounting responsibilities, payroll, all of this, like from communication, all this different activities, see what's taking most of your time and like allocate the percentage of your time. So like 50% I spend it on this type of activities, the rest 20% on this, and then the 10 and so on. And then identify if where you're spending the most of your time, is that where your true area of genius is at? Because if you're spending most of your time in the areas or things that you're not really exceeding at, you're going to burn yourself out. And that's where we find out, like business owners, just like, I am dreading, working, like I'm dreading for Monday to come here because I do not enjoy, I'm looking forward to like that Friday because I'm not working in my area of genius. And the thing is that, yes, you're not going to always work in solely the things that you love, but that's where you can start. Hey, how can I have a goal if I'm not ready yet financially to hire a person? How can I have a goal to develop certain activities that are going to increase the revenue that I'm getting for my business, right? So then I can allocate these tasks that are not super enjoyable that somebody else can do for that right person. So there's not really, I think I think I would be lying if I tell you like, this is the number one hire that you need to have today,
Right.
Because it really varies depending on who the leader is. What I will say is like, you always have to be promoting your business. So from the beginning, having somebody that is able to help you with that branding side, whether it's like somebody that's cutting up your content to like post it on social media or helping you like navigate some of those like very easy things that you can outsource to somebody that's not full-time type of employees. I think that that's a great investment of your time off the gate.
Yeah. You said zone of genius or area of genius. Define that for everyone, if you will.
Yeah. So for me is, I'll give you an example. I love to spend time at the garden. Like I love to spend time just like, okay, like playing with like what we're going to plant here or like thinking about that. If I tell my husband, hey, come help me with this, he hates the garden. He hates, like working in the, like, he's like, I'm going to get my hands dirty. Like, let's just hire somebody to do that. I think the area of genius really is like, where do you feel like you're the strongest at and that you can spend the most amount of time doing something that is not taking off your energy. Your energy is being replenished by doing these activities. I'll give you another example, like introverts, like if you put them in a social environment that drains them energetic wise, right? And so like that is not their area of genius. That's not the area where they should be focusing all of their activities, like being a salesperson, for example, that would kill them. But, somebody that really is extroverted, if you put them as a client success manager, and that's where you start thinking about like what are the attributes, skill sets and strengths, of the person, like that's where you start understanding, okay, like this is the person that is right. It's suited for this role because they really excel at this skill sets or this opportunities.
Got it. Okay. So let's say I'm about to make my first hire or my next hire. And this is what I do. I start with a job description, right, for that role. So what would your advice be for crafting that effective job description? Because I've seen some really good ones and I've seen a lot of really bad ones. So What are your feelings about the key elements that go into the right type of job description that will help you attract the right kinds of people?
Yeah. I think, are you talking from the perspective of like the person that's reading the job description? Like what are attributes like should the applicant have so that the person reading it is like more prone to
Yeah.
accept it? Yeah.
If I'm creating it, how do I get the person who's reading it to like
Yeah.
it, engage with it, and go out for the job?
Yeah. I do, I feel like a lot of people do a lot of text, and that's great. But at the same time, like most of us are always going to LinkedIn and looking at like what exactly was your background. If it's not stating in LinkedIn, then maybe there's a problem there, I feel like a lot of people are really focused on like references. And like, of course, if you're putting somebody in your reference, hopefully they're going to say good things about you. In our case, we actually do not put too much of a input in terms of, or like focus on the job description itself. Like we assume that your job description will have some experiences that if you're applying for this specific role, you're going to highlight those experiences, right? I wouldn't put like, if you're applying for a digital marketing agency job, I wouldn't put in your job description, like make it like so long that you're like, yeah, I was a waitress at this. Okay, I guess you got some like, experience in like navigating like problems with people there. But if you're applying for an engineer role, like focus on highlighting the things that, are really going to matter for that role specifically. I think adding a lot of like just making sure that it looks like something I would like to read instead of like something boring, like because you're seeing so many at a point that it's like what's going to make you different. Including a picture, I think it's always helpful, and including a good picture now with AI, that just like helps everybody so much. Like everybody should be looking so professional now that it's not even funny. But I, in our process, that's one of the steps. I think more and more businesses are getting smarter at how to hire, and hiring. You mentioned one of the questions that you had was like, what do you hire? You hire for the skill or what? I feel like a lot of people are noticing that you can train most people on most things, but what you cannot train people is how do they react to problems? How are they as humans? How are they as, like coworkers and people that you want to spend time with? Because at the end of the day, you spend most of your time in the job normally than with your family or even friends. And so having that opportunity to test those communication skill set, and like even the feeling of the person, and are they, like, do they have similar values like we have in the business? I think like that would be more important. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned LinkedIn. So tell me what your recruitment strategies are. I'm hearing LinkedIn maybe. And then do you use any of like Indeed or ZipRecruiter or any sites like that? Tell us if you were us being an agency who's making a first hire or the next hire, how would you try to recruit for that job? What platforms would you use?
Yeah, we use a lot of LinkedIn. We also use Indeed as well. And then we also have partnered with other resources, agencies that are like staffing agencies that are focused specifically in our niche. I think like that is just a great opportunity. If anybody needs help with that, please message me. I'm like just going at me on Facebook, Karen Hite, and I'm happy to like make some introductions there just because I've been in your shoes too. And I know how hard it is, but just having those relationships and developing those relationships, especially with a staffing agency, I think has been really great because then they know exactly what we're looking for. And in the past, for example, when we were hiring very aggressively, I think like up until we got to like 150 teammates in our agency today, I think like we were doing that in-house. Like we had our own recruiter. We had, like we developed that. Now that we're trying to be like more efficient, with like, okay, you leveraging AI. So like not having to hire so many bodies, for the work, and instead of like just like being more focused on, like just leveraging tools and things like that, we're definitely taking advantage of those staffing agencies and building with them rapport, like sharing with them who we are. And they really become that extension of your business without having to spend so much money into having somebody that's like fully recruiting, because most agencies are not going to recruit 10 people a month, like that's like very rapid growth that we were, like having just like that really put us to test. But just in hiring, over 150 team members, because obviously people leave and people come and there's like more people in that final number, I think really has helped us to have a clear path of what what is success when it comes to like hiring? For us, it's not only about getting the job description and all of that, but really focusing on that cultural aspect and to see if they're a cultural fit for us.
Let's talk about that then. How do you conduct your interview process? And how, during that process, what kind of questions do you ask or scenarios do you ask for that help you understand if that person's going to be a cultural fit or not?
Yeah. So one thing that we are really focused on is like, how do they speak about their previous or even current opportunities that they have, right? Like if they're talking to us working for somebody else, I think for us it's really important to understand like if they're talking negatively, right, about their previous experience or current experience, if they're running away from something, that's kind of like a red flag for us. Like we don't want anybody running away from things. We want people to run towards, like being inside of our business. We want people to run to become part of our, I guess, environment and family, if you may say. And I think like that is key those are little things that most people like, oh yeah, like everybody complains about their work. But I was just talking to a friend. We all business owners know that your business also has problems. So if you hear, like no business is perfect. Everybody has their own problems, right?
Yeah.
We're all dealing with our own little like show there, our little circus internally. And the fact is that they're going to experience that when they come, when they join, the business. And so being understanding how are they managing that stress? I think a lot of as you're managing people and growing people and understanding, like who's going to be able to like go into the next step. And our job really as business owners is to continue to build leaders in our business. So that way the job doesn't depend on us, so we can really be that vision and for the business. And so having an understanding of the type of people and how they're going to react to problems, I think it's really crucial when you're hiring, because then, as I mentioned, you can always train for the skill set to have, you can always train them for the thing that they're going to do. But if there's somebody that is easily going to the negative side of the world, and everything sucks, and like that for me is just like so hard to deal with because we already have problems to solve, much less adding, the mix of like, okay, now I need to convince somebody to feel positive about the complexities that the world throws at us every day, right?
That's such great advice. And I feel like I wish we would have had this conversation several years ago because I can remember this was back when I was still doing operations, which I don't do anymore. But I remember hiring someone, and during their interview, this person was like, they don't treat me right. There's too many projects. I don't get paid enough. And I was just thinking like, oh, poor you. Well, we're going to fix that,
Yeah.
Long story short, I'm sure, as you all know, listening or watching, it didn't end up working out in the end. And this person constantly felt overwhelmed and whatever. So I like that instead of, I have a lot of empathy, maybe too much, but instead of having that empathy in that moment, what I should have thought about is like, hey, I can't speak to your situation. Your experiences are your experiences. Yeah. But if that's what you're coming to this new, fresh, fun, new thing with, and all of that negativeness around it, it kind of means that you might end up with that negativeness in your company, right?
And it also, I think, depends on like where your business is at. If you're something that we learn, if we're hiring somebody that comes from a very corporate, very structured type of background, going into like entrepreneurship where like you have like your business is a baby, so you're like super flexible to like change things. And that's kind of like what you need, like to pivot and to be able to make changes right away. So like things go the right way. People that have been in a very structured corporate, like where like we need to have, 3 months of like understanding if this change is going to make sense or not and study the things and get the right approvals. That's not going to work. Right. And they're going to feel like, okay, this is unstable. Like, I feel like the topic of stability has been such an interesting thing for me because a lot of people see stability in very different ways. Like what is overwhelming for some is not overwhelming for others. And understanding where your business is at when you're hiring and asking those questions of like, how do you deal with change? Because if you're in a business where you have been in business less than 5 years, you're going to be changing quite a bit. Like a lot. Right. And so understanding how do they deal with that and presenting scenarios and coming across with like what would you do in this situation? Like we have this or we have that, especially if their role involves managing people, which is, that alone is like, you have to be a psychologist, you have to be a mom, a parent, I feel like we always say that businesses have attributes of family in it, right? They're not family, but they have attributes of family. And a lot of managers really act as parents, to the people that are under them. And just understanding that if you're not somebody that's like really wanting to mentor or like walk with people, you're going to get really annoyed when that person is late and you're like, why are they even late? And you have to navigate that. Like it happened to me, and nobody so you have to really understand yourself in order to like see what is the right fit for me and who should I hire. Like I wouldn't hire people that are like, oh, they seem nice. I mean, like a lot of people, I don't know if that happened to you, but I get along with this person. It's amazing. Like they could be friends. Friends not always like mean that you could work together with them. Like it might be like great to like have a conversation over coffee, but not necessarily you're working through problems together and just overcoming obstacles and coming up with solutions.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love my friends, and what I have learned in the past 12 years of doing this is like friends are wonderful. Keep them out of the business because they're not wonderful when you have to work together.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say we've made the hire. We found someone who is nice, but also can fulfill the duties of the role. They seem like a culture fit. What kind of onboarding process do you recommend to ensure that they're going to integrate seamlessly with your team, your agency, your processes, your clients, all the things?
Well, I think depending on the role, again, one of the things that we started doing at Height before they even jump on really becoming part of before they even say yes to the job is we had people that were above the role. For example, if I'm hiring somebody for an account manager and they work closely with this person and this person above them, we actually had them be part of the interviewing process at a certain point, right? Like at a certain stage. Mainly not because one of the things that you can see as the recruiter or the person is like, okay, yeah, this person has the skills and the desire to work. They sound like a good cultural fit. But what happens when they're working directly with this person? That personality clash can also be an obstacle, in having that person. So including those people, like those decision makers, sort of like as just power users, as we call them sometimes in implementation projects, so like having them come into like that hiring journey and asking the questions and saying, hey, how does that sound to work next to that person? Obviously, in that very short amount of time of getting to know each other, how does that sound? Do you feel like that's something you would enjoy? Like, how was the vibe? And that has helped tremendously when it comes to like the onboarding of that person, because now they know who their direct response person is going to be, the manager above them. They understand more about the culture of the business. They're able to like also like see more about the culture of the business before they even say yes. So that's really helpful. When it comes to the onboarding, I think understanding, we like to like, have like warm welcomes where like we're giving them a little bit of swag, like just making it fun of like their first day. Since we went remote, one of the things that I think it's key here, because not everybody is in person. Since we went remote, we actually started created a virtual office that has been so cool for us, because we were able to like sort of like bring that in-person aspect to the remote working. And so now we have this platform that we had designed. And so like they have an opportunity to like have like a board that says welcome to the person, and like just add things in there, like the creation, and just like it feels like kind of like an office, which I think it's just like really cool. So I would just like try to see how can we add components of that. Then also in the onboarding, we go through sort of like a lengthy introduction through HR and our managers, and we bring different components of the business. For example, JC, my husband, would talk about like levels of service with everybody, and so like how do we want to serve people? Like what is our approach in serving people? What does it mean to serve people? Outside of the training of like the tactical strategic stuff that they're going to learn for the role, I think how are we responding as humans first in any type of environment situation that happens, whether it's with a client, with a teammate, with somebody that is above us, like that is key. And just ensuring that they know how to react when something happens. Because you're going to always come up with problems along the way. One thing that I've learned from John Maxwell, he's one of our mentors inside of our mastermind. We talked about this topic specifically of hiring people. And he said something that I think it's so key when you're onboarding somebody and just telling them, having that conversation and saying, we're going to have difficult conversations in the future. That's going to be part of that. But how do we navigate them is going to be super important. I want to, and just like being upfront with people and saying, I want to make sure that you know that I'm always going to bring that difficult conversation, those difficult conversations, as soon as I identify them, because I want to solve them and I want to be a resource for you. And so going deep with people, seeing beyond just like the KPIs that they have to fulfill and the results and the goals, I think that's what helps businesses grow. So onboarding is super key.
Yeah. I want to hear more about this virtual office that you use, because we're a remote team as well. Yeah. We were just having this conversation on Monday during our meeting. Like, how could we get together, even though we're all remote, and have more of like a together experience? So I would love if you would just share a tiny bit about the tool that you use.
It has changed. You're going to have to tell me when to stop. It has changed our lives for real. So it was so funny because we went remote last year around, I think like beginning of last year. And we started implementing the remote office beginning of this year, like a few months ago. So it hasn't been like too much. But we tested it one weekend. We jumped in with the CEO of the company. So like it was one of those like really cool experiences where we got to talk to them. They helped us build the whole office, because it's kind of like building your own like game. It's the coolest thing. So like if you are part of the operations team, or if you have an operation, they're going to enjoy it. If they love building and creating, they're going to have so much fun doing that. So we built a whole office. And then by Monday, by Monday, we said, hey, everybody, cold turkey, we're going to leave Slack. We're going to go straight into like, it was probably one of those, like, again, if you're a business that is young enough that, you can make like pivots and changes, you can do this type of things. So Monday, we're really like, hey, everybody come in. And everyone's like, what is this? Like, what's going on? Probably the worst thing I could have done for people on Monday, we're not on Zoom, we're here. But it has been so cool to be able to see people. And like, I literally walk with my little like avatar there, and I go into offices and I'm like, hey, what's up? What's happening? If they either have a public conversation or like, because it goes into the rooms. And so like, if you're in the room, it's just like if you were in the room in an office, I can hear what you're saying by just being in the room. So you don't have to like, hey, can you send me the Zoom link for this? Can I talk to you about this? It's really a very cool just experience of like being closer with people, and just allows that quick communication a lot sooner than you normally have remote. And it's just, it has been a great experience. Everybody can decorate some of like their stuff, actually all of their stuff as they want to. I was thinking like, maybe we are going to have a cleaning person for the office, just like making sure that everything is situated. Can you imagine like that would be your job? Like that would be so cool. But
wait, so is it like an office in the metaverse? Is that what it's kind of like?
Sort of. So like you can, it's kind of like a 3D look. I'm happy to show it to you. And maybe if we have any resources, I can send you the link for that as well.
And what's it called? Because I'll put it in the show notes.
It's called SoWorks.
So S-O?
Yeah. SoWorks. Yeah.
SoWorks. Okay.
Yeah,
I will put that in the notes for the show, y'all, so everybody can go check it out, because it sounds really cool.
Yes.
And I hate to pivot off of such a fun topic, but let's talk about common mistakes, right? Yes. I just owned up to a mistake that I've made, and I make mistakes every day, all the time. So what are some of the most common mistakes that you see people making when they go to hire people, whether it's their first hire or their 150th hire like you've done? Yeah. And how do you think that some of those mistakes can be avoided?
So one of the things that we implemented in the hiring process is we have something that's called the video of awesomeness. I think a lot of people have probably implemented. I think we got it out of Mindvalley or something like that back in the day. And we started this with like 6 years ago. We started this like as we had our first hires. And part of that is having people create a video. Specifically, we say, hey, tell me 3 reasons why you're awesome, and tell me 3 reasons why you think Height is awesome, why our company is awesome. And what you get to see through that video is many things. First, like that's all the instructions that we give. Send it to me when you can. So people are like, oh, like we don't give them a timeline. We don't give them like a length. We don't give them like specifics of it. We just tell them like, these are the instructions. What you get to see there is like how resourceful people are. You know, are they going to ask a friend for help? Are they do it on their own? Are they going to just like have a phone and just like say, hey, okay, this is Karen. These are 3 reasons why I'm awesome and 3 reasons why you're awesome. Or are they going to really put in some effort to like ask questions? Depending on the role that you're hiring, you're going to see, oh, okay, this person was super creative, but they're going to do like an admin work. Maybe that's not going to be like fully their path, right? Or the contrary. And so it has been really cool to see people investigate more, probably to have a little bit more research of the business. Mm-hmm. Also, the people that do not want to put in the effort to do a video of awesomeness, we can quickly say they were just looking for a job. They were just looking for another thing to do, not really excited about coming into Height. And so that has been really helpful when it comes to hiring the right people, because then we are not hiring somebody that just wants a paycheck, you know, that is really like just saying the right things in the interview, but not really wanting to get to know the business and be part of that environment. And it, as a result, helps us not to have to deal with some of those things. Now, obviously, we all have like people that maybe they're not the right fit as you get to start working with them. In the past, I feel like we were so guilty of, you know, hiring slow and firing very, very slow, which is so painful when it comes to having A players, B players, C players, because those C players, if they stay there for a long time, your A players are like wondering, well, is what I'm doing even worth it? You know, like, am I like actually making a change? You can actually, it's hard to make everybody feel special. And so people start comparing in their same roles, and if they see like, okay, this person like is not even putting the effort and they're getting the same paycheck and their same amount of attention. And I'm here like going the extra mile, and like, you know, like just that creates a lot of, you know, stress, unnecessary stress, I think, in the culture of a business. So hiring, you know, like slow for sure, but firing fast. I don't think people can hear that enough. Hiring fast. You're not, and I'm just going to say this because that was a struggle for us. You're not somebody's savior. You're not somebody's savior. You're like, their life does not depend in you giving them a job. That is too egocentric of you to think that this person will not make it in another opportunity. And in fact, you're actually taking away their opportunity for growth by not firing them when they should be fired, not giving the right feedback to, right, when you're firing them. So they know what things they need to work on. I think that's one of the biggest issues that most businesses fail, especially those that have a lot of values that are very attributes similar to family, you know, where you're like, I really want to grow a team and like support them and be there for them. We are the same way. We put family, you know, like faith and everything that we do. And so like, it's one of those things that, you know, we want to be there for everybody, but at the end of the day, you're not everybody's savior. And so you can do things inside of your business to help you navigate difficult situations, like having procedures and sharing them, just like what I mentioned with John Maxwell, you know, like being very upfront about it. Like one of the examples that we included in our playbook is like, you can get fired if you cheat on your spouse. And like, that's not something related at all to the job. But if we come up with that scenario, it's really hard, especially in leadership, it's really hard to trust people that, you know, like if your spouse couldn't trust you to do that, like, I mean, like that's a very difficult subject, I think, to navigate. But at the end of the day, you know, like you have to be able to build a strong leadership, you know, just a strong level of leadership if you want to grow your business.
No, I think that's really sound advice. I know that's something we've struggled with in the past, and probably even sometimes still, is the whole hiring slow, firing fast mentality. But I love how you say you are not that person's savior. It's possible that in not being kind, sometimes we are being nice, right? Am I making sense here? Like, if someone's doing a terrible job and you try to be kind in the way that you tell them, like, hey, you're doing a terrible job, and you don't come out right and say that, you're actually not being very nice to that person. You're allowing them to continue to act or perform in a way that doesn't meet the standard. So yeah, I really like that advice a lot.
Yeah, I think, like everybody can be nice to your face, but like kindness really is just like, hey, like going the extra mile to like tell you, hey, this is something, like this is an opportunity for you to grow, and you can do that while you're here. We can give you that opportunity, and here are the steps to make it happen. I think like people at the end of the day, they fire themselves. And that's something that we need to understand, and they need to understand it well. Hey, here are the steps to make this much better for you and for us, because at the end of the day, we have to run a profitable business, or something that makes sense, an efficient business, right? So like these are the steps to like make this better. If you do not make the steps by X amount, we will understand that this is not the right fit for you, and we're gonna be more than happy to find you another role. Mm-hmm. Some of the things that we have done for people that have been exited by our business, or that like we just didn't no longer need their services, or they were not a right fit, is helping them find the right person. Like we actually like connected them with a staffing company and help them, like redo their own like CVs, they're just like their job CVs and all that stuff, and that helps them put them into an opportunity to like really get to where they want to be. Because if they don't want to be in your business, there's nothing you can do to motivate somebody to want to be somewhere where they do not want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, last question. How should new agency owners who are watching or listening plan their staffing around the growth of their agency? So you've talked about now 2 agencies that you've been with where the growth sounds like it's just been like wildly exponential.
Yeah.
What's your top piece of advice for planning for growth? Once you start to see that growth spurt happen, what should the plan for hiring be?
So it's kind of one of those things that like what happens, like the chicken or the egg type of thing, like do we hire right now because we're going to need that growth? I think for us, we like to have at least like 20% of leadway in any role. So for example, if like we're having an engineer, we want to have like that just opportunity for growth for them. So like if they are, and as we are looking at different positions, like an account manager, they can serve like up to like 30 clients, depending on how their seniority, and like the type of clients that they have and things like that. And understanding that, okay, we want to give 20%, of leadway there. So if they take a break, if they want to go on vacations, like the company is not going to suffer because like they did the normal thing that they should do, which is like be a human and enjoy your time off. So I think like anytime that you feel that, okay, I depend on this person, is like crucial for you to like start finding somebody else. One of the advice that Mike Michalowicz gave us at our mastermind, we had a session with, do you know who he is? He's the writer of Clockwork and other amazing books, but he specifically talked about delegation. And so part of that, like just focusing on the outcome and not the specific task. Because if you focus on the task and then you feel like, okay, they didn't do it that way that I would have done it, but do they reach the outcome, right? Like that is key, I think, when it comes to like understanding, do I have the right resource in place or not? And if you don't, then yeah, you should be looking at different people and how to hire, like what is the complexity that they are facing and overwhelm and all of that. But he said something that I thought was really cool, and is that anybody in leadership in his business, and this is something that he recommends for everybody, anybody in leadership should take 4 weeks in a row off every year. It's like just everybody in leadership. And I thought, man, like probably people listening to me saying that right now will like freak out. It's just like, what do you mean 4 weeks in a row taking off? But you need to make sure that you're building a system or systems, processes that do not depend on an individual being there for the company. If we think about our businesses being something that we want to exit at some point. And even if you don't want to exit the business, you still, guess what? You're going to exit life, at some point. So you're not going to be here the whole time, right? Like nobody's eternal here. So everybody's going to go, whether it's to a new opportunity, something's going to happen, right? So preparing your business to live outside of like just one person in that role. Can we take over some of these things? And can we build the processes for that? I think that allows you to see where things are breaking and where you need to maybe hire somebody, or where you need to be more efficient with your processes and just like work on your business.
Okay, I just have to tell you that this was not planned, y'all. Karen does not know this. I am trying to take the whole month of August off this year.
Oh, wow.
And you saying that feels like a validation that I should really try to do it because I haven't had like an actual vacation since 2015. So
yes, you need to.
I'm hearing what you're saying and I'm just pretending like it's the universe telling me that, yes, Brooke, you should definitely take the whole month of August off. Oh,
there you
man.
go.
No, this has been such amazing advice. I love how much wisdom you have. Obviously, we have a ton of experience in this area, but also just in working with agencies in general. So, can you pretty please tell our audience where they can find you, how they can connect with you? Maybe they want to get advice from you as an agency, all the good things.
Absolutely. Couple of ways. You can go to our website, theheights.com. You can book a call there and you're actually booking directly with me. I just believe in just talking to people. And so I'm one of those weird people that wants to talk to you. So if you want to actually connect, let's book a call there, or you can follow me on social media on Facebook as The Karen Hite. I think that's how you're going to find me, HITE. That's where you can find me, or you can also find me on Instagram, The Karen Hite as well. Those are the places to look for me.
Fantastic. I know everybody's going to go look for you because, listen, I even want some advice now on hiring, and we're 12 years in. We're not making any new hires. But I wrote down, I don't know if you saw me sneak my pen and pad over. I was furiously taking notes over here, which is always a good sign. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experience with us. And hopefully we'll talk to you again soon because I'm sure you have plenty other things you can give us agency advice on.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity and hope this helped everybody that's listening.
Thanks, y'all.